Hey, Ecommerce Marketing Podcast listener, are you looking to increase traffic and sales to your website? You can do this by launching your own referral program. Just visit getosi.com and sign up for a free trial today. That's getosi.com. Now get ready to hear from your e-commerce marketing expert of the week as they drill down to give you details on marketing strategies that can help grow your business.
Welcome back to the E-commerce Marketing Podcast, everyone. I am your host, Arlen Robinson, and today we have a very special guest, Will Laurenson, who is a customer value optimization consultant, helping businesses improve conversion rates and customer lifetime values through optimization. He is the founder of Customers Who Click and hosts the Customers Who Click podcast, a weekly chat with a guest giving new ideas and approaches to marketing strategies. Welcome to the podcast, Will.
Hi, Arlen. Thanks for having me.
Yes, no problem. And thank you for joining me. I'm excited to talk to you today about, the topic at hand, which is going to be really improving the customer's experience on a website. It's a topic that I think doesn't often get addressed enough these days, just because a lot of times the businesses, e-commerce businesses specifically that I've come in contact with, are just so focused on driving customers to their website. And then, what happens when they get to the website becomes almost an afterthought. But as you know, and I know, the customer experience is very crucial to, converting them and, kind of winning them over. So we're going to dive deep into that today. But before we get into all of that, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your background and, specifically how you got into what you're doing today?
Yeah, sure. My background actually was originally in startups. I moved between about 4 of them in the first 6 years of my career. It wasn't bouncing around too quickly, but I think what I discovered was exactly what you've just said. The companies are really, really focused on driving traffic and driving that new traffic, new users, new customers. And there was always kind of, I guess, the assumption that once the product was built, that was it. Like, that's all they needed to do. Whether it was an app or a website, get it built, and then all you've got to do is drive traffic to it. And then all you've got to do is optimize the ads and the creative and that sort of thing. And that's what would then drive an increase in conversion rate on a website or an app. So I started, my experience was quite general marketing. I took, marketing manager roles, head of marketing roles, but with quite a broad focus. So what I started to do was actually work quite closely with product teams. So I would, kind of get the marketing in place, get some agencies or in-house people or whatever to do PPC, SEO and all that. And then I would focus my efforts more on a bit of customer service and that kind of onboarding experiences that we can offer people, the CRM marketing automation flows that happen post purchase or sign up. But then I also worked really closely with the product teams to make sure that they understood that what we couldn't be doing is just saying, here is the next feature on the roadmap that we want to build. It needs to be, here's the next feature on the roadmap that the customer needs us to build.
Right.
And, one example would be, we just relaunched an app for not a global company, but a company that operated in multiple countries. And we hadn't quite launched it yet. They just sent us the beta version to test out before it went live. And I pointed out that in the UK version, it didn't allow a customer to actually verify a particular piece of identification, which was a legal requirement for us in the UK. So, they weren't focusing on those customer needs or even really doing the research and understanding what the business needed. So that's where I kind of saw this need to actually have a marketer involved in the product side. And make sure we're really focusing on that customer experience, because, their solution originally was, well, for the UK, we'll just ask them to contact customer service for that step. So we'll kind of, in the app, we'll skip it out, but then we'll just follow up with them and say, oh, can you please email this in? I said, no, you can't do that. I mean, you can maybe as a short-term fix, but we have to have this in place. It's got to be a seamless process. So that happened in a couple of businesses, obviously different touch points that affected this, but I was always seeing the same thing, which was the product is built, the product team has their roadmap of just stuff to build for the future, and the marketing team's job is to acquire customers and get those customers coming back.
Yeah.
But that's not going to happen if they have a bad experience.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. And it's interesting what you said as far as, and I think this is something a lot of businesses do, where they know that there's some shortcomings with regards to the on-site experience, the customer experience, but they kind of put it off, and it's like, oh, okay, they leave it up to the customer support teams to resolve any issues or to kind of plug any holes if there's anything that was missing. I mean, you can do that, like you said, but that's a lot of times if you wait till then, it's kind of too late, because you've already kind of set a precedent in the eyes of the customer. They're kind of, they may not at that point be as hopeful or optimistic about their overall experience. They may hang in there for a little bit, but you've already kind of brought them down a little level. Yeah,
it can oftentimes not be a great experience for the customer, but also the risk is let's say it's that example where they didn't think of something in the kind of development stage, and the quick fix is to get customer service to just handle it on a manual basis.
Right.
The product team moves on. The product team starts moving on to those new features and those new projects to work on. They completely forget about the fact that customer service are managing this. And what happens is there are no complaints to them. As far as they're aware, everything's working as expected.
Right.
And so the actual work to get that fixed drops off the pipeline as well, because suddenly it's, but this is working. So why do we need to change anything?
Yeah.
And you've got the customer service team who have now got a load more work to do, because what they thought was a temporary measure has now turned into a permanent one, because the development team just moved on. And I'm not trying to blame development teams for being like at fault here. But if you identify these problems early, which you should do by involving the right people in the projects, you get it fixed first. When it's that big a deal, when it's a crucial part of the customer journey, you get it fixed before you go live with it.
Yeah, very, very true. And you're so right about the fact that when the development team moves on, then the customers that are kind of dealing with these issues, I mean, it's going to be an ongoing thing. A customer support team just knows how to kind of fix it, and they're going to do that. And then if you keep just moving on, it kind of gets lost. And unless you kind of address it or have that open dialogue, then it's going to get buried. And then these things just going to keep compounding, and you're going to have more and more issues. So it makes a lot of sense. And
most of the time, the general customer service people don't speak to development.
Right. Definitely.
So there's not even that day-to-day just dropping a hint or whatever to say we need to get this fixed. Whereas, with a marketing team, it's a lot. Well, from my experience, maybe because I've just done it myself, but I found it, marketing at least works a bit more closely with development a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And so it's easier to say, we've still got this issue in marketing, we still need to fix it.
Right. Very true. Very true.
Whereas, especially if you outsource your customer service team or even if they're just in a different office, which is the case in a lot of bigger companies, those conversations just don't happen, and it's difficult for them to happen. And they're also easy to kind of brush off.
Definitely. Now, if we're going to look at this whole kind of customer experience, niche, I guess if you could say, or the customer experience category on a particular website for an e-commerce business, what are the, I guess, main elements that you see that comprise really the customer's on-site experience? Because I know it can really kind of be broken down to a lot of different categories.
I guess the kind of the big key thing is that it's clear and easy to use. That's got to be it. Someone has got to be able to really understand easily what this product or service is going to do for them, how it's going to change their life, and that will convince them to buy it. And then when they actually, so you've got to work on that, kind of touch on those emotions around kind of anxiety and motivation, scarcity, urgency, but also social proof, and then really focus on that. Why is this product going to fix my life and solve that problem that I'm facing? Once I've understood that and I've made the decision that I want to buy this, you've got to make it really easy functionally for me to make that purchase. So make it easy for me to pick a size if it's clothing. Make it easy for me to add it to cart. Make it easy for me to then add my personal details in, my payment details, pick the payment method that I prefer. And obviously you can't add every single payment method. It's just, it'd be a nightmare. Right. But, you can have, there's no excuse not to have credit card available. Really you should have PayPal, because it is a huge amount of payments still. And I'd even suggest, to most businesses, really stuff like Klarna or OpenPay, those buy now, pay later solutions. They're getting really popular. People want them, and they're proven to improve conversion rates and order values.
Yeah.
And if you get, so one of the reasons it improves order values is because people are able to say, I can put $1,000 worth $1,000 worth in my basket, because I know I'm not going to pay for it all. Yeah. By the time it comes to payment day, I can have returned $800 worth of it. However, if you get the customer experience right on site, you avoid a lot of those problems. If you can convince people that this is the product for them and deal with any issues they have and anxieties they have around whether it's correct, you won't have those returns issues.
Yeah.
It's especially with clothing and shoes, where someone might quite easily be tempted just to say, well, I'll buy a small, medium, and a large. I'll just try them all on and I'll send back the two that I don't like. Or I'll buy these 3 different sizes of shoes because I'm just not too sure which one's going to be the right fit. But if you put the right tools and experiences in place on the website to convince someone that that is the size for them, they only have to buy that one. So you get the better conversion because they still pay 30 days later. But you don't have the returns, so you don't have the costs associated with that. And that's one of the big issues around conversion rate optimization these days, I think. And people who focus purely on conversion rate optimization, you can improve conversion rates by offering massive discounts and free shipping, free returns, all these different things, which basically just make it an easy decision for the customer to go, well, I might as well just buy it because I can, if I don't like it, get rid of it, whatever. So you've got to avoid doing that. You've got to make sure that any of these tactics and things you implement to improve conversion rates also are there to actually benefit lifetime value in the future as well. Like you still want to give the person a good experience. Ideally you want them to pay full price, because if the product is right for them, you should be able to convince them of that, which would then lead to the purchase because they've decided they need that in their life.
Right.
You've made it easy for them to buy with their preferred payment method. So they've checked out, they've got their product, and then your post-purchase experience is good to kind of just check in on them, make them happy. One thing I did, I phoned up an unhappy customer once. She got in touch via email, I think, really unhappy. It was a subscription related. I think, honestly, I think it was one of these complaints where she was unaware that this subscription was going to come out at the same time every month that it had been coming out. But I, apologized, explained it, and instead of canceling, she just stayed with us. And I had to do nothing except just check in on her, basically, and give it a little bit of a more one-to-one touch. So that's one thing I really dislike that a lot of brands do is you've made your purchase. A week later, you get an email asking you to rate the business on Trustpilot. Right. That's what the business needs. That's not what I need as a customer. What I need is for you to check in on me almost like on a one-to-one basis to make sure that I'm okay and that the product has fit my needs. And if I've got any questions or concerns, I can just reply and have my problem solved. The review should come a bit later. So it's I think you should always be thinking what's in it for the customer with pretty much everything you do. And then once you're certain that the customer is happy, then you kind of bring in those, what does the business need at this moment, which is the review, because the customer doesn't need that.
Yeah, exactly. And that is so true. And there's so many businesses that, they're so anxious to try to get that, the review, get the feedback. Yeah, it comes, like you said, way too soon. It comes off, like you said, as you're not concerned about them, the customer, you're more concerned about the business and the business's goals. And it's easy to try to do that because, of course, businesses these days, especially product businesses, do live and die by their reviews. And I know that we can kind of see why they're so anxious to get them. But the bottom line is you're only going to get that unless you satisfy that customer. So you got to meet their needs first. And then, of course, if you've done everything that you can to satisfy them, meet their needs, answer their questions, then at that point, then it would be a little bit more natural for them to do what you want, provide the review or whatever you're asking them, or testimonial.
Exactly. And it costs you nothing to send that email to just check in on them. But even if they don't reply, as long as they've seen it, it just it builds that relationship with the brand a bit and builds that trust.
Yeah.
I just kind of one example, I'm working with a client who does have this, it's an e-commerce business, but they do kind of have that one-to-one relationship with their customers. We sent out a survey asking for feedback from people so that we can help kind of direct where the new website should go. And then one of the final questions was, are you happy for the business to contact you about your feedback and then drop your email in? We got a 68% yes response rate on that. So 68% of people who filled in the survey said, yes, we're happy to speak to the business. And that only really happens if you've built some sort of relationship and trust with them by giving them a better customer experience. Right.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, you mentioned a couple things as far as the post-purchase experience, and it's, that's something that a lot of times, like you said, is overlooked. And we mentioned one thing is the post-purchase experience where you're asking all of these things of the customer, and you're not really kind of meeting their needs. And so you mentioned one thing, of course, is just a simple follow-up call, asking how things are going. This could be somebody on your support team. It could be, whoever you designate to do these calls. And that's great. That's definitely one tactic to try to alleviate any issues before they get worse, or to try to resolve any returns. Maybe there's a particular aspect of the product that maybe a lot of people have trouble with. Maybe you can contact them directly and try to alleviate any, issues that they're having utilizing it. So yeah, that's definitely something that you can do. What are some other post-purchase experience, I guess you could say, kind of tactics that you can kind of help to smooth out your overall experience that you have with the customer, and then ultimately improve their lifetime value?
Yeah. So just back on that previous point, it obviously doesn't have to be a phone call. It can just be an email. That's absolutely fine. There are some pretty cool services you can use, like Bonjoro.
Yeah.
Who I've actually interviewed on my podcast. You can send these videos and things, and they don't have to be unique. They just need to be genuine. But yeah, all you've got to do is check in on people.
Yeah.
That's enough. Just checking in. You don't have to speak to them. As long as they know that you've made the attempt to contact them, that's better than nothing.
Yeah, that's so true.
Post-purchase, otherwise, apart from the email said, so apart from just sending that review too early, which is just in it for you, obviously any other post-purchase emails you send, make sure it's, even if you're asking the customer to do something for you, you're framing it in a way which is the customer's going to get the most out of this.
Right.
So, it's really tempting to just push your loyalty scheme and say, here's how you earn points, here's how you can spend points, here are your different tiers. But the customer doesn't really care. You need to tell the customer what they're really going to get out of this. What's the end result for them out of this loyalty program, which could be special events, exclusive sales, discount codes to use, that sort of thing. But that's clearly got to be in there. You'll get a discount on your next purchase, or something like that.
Right.
So just make sure that when you are doing this follow-up stuff, you are really making it about the customer, even if it's very clearly something that the business wants and is going to be a benefit to the business. Frame it as a benefit to the consumer. I'm a big fan of the actual unboxing experience and delivery experience. So one thing I would suggest on the delivery side is make sure you've got a really good delivery partner. Make sure that they provide tracking links. Ideally pick one that allows the customer a bit of flexibility with if circumstances change. I've everyone here, I don't know, do you have Hermes?
I'm sorry, what is that?
The delivery, the courier, Hermes.
Hermes, I'm not familiar with that. That could just be a European.
Yeah, maybe it's just over here, but they actually get a lot of stick, right? They get a lot of complaints, and yet my experience has only been good with them. I remember the example I've got actually for you is I bought something off a company recently. I got an email from Hermes about a day later, maybe within 24 hours, saying, "We're aware of your order. We haven't got your products, your order yet, but we know that this order has been placed, and this company has tasked us with delivering this to you." So that's like a pre-shipping notification from the courier. So I'm thinking, okay, the courier knows what they're doing. Then I got the email saying we've got the package, we're just getting it ready, and then we'll ship it out. Then I got the shipping one. Then I got I think it was the day before, our driver is going to be with you within roughly these hours, but we'll let you know closer to the time. And then I think the next day I got a text message with an hour slot. Or something like that. So the communication was so good. I had no concerns about whether I would receive that package. And you don't have to go with one that extreme, but just one that is going to send out those emails. One that's going to allow people to change their the special requests. Sometimes you can say leave it with a neighbor or leave it in the back garden, whatever. A courier that allows that flexibility once that package has been shipped.
Gotcha.
That sort of thing. Then you've got sorry, go on.
Oh no, you go ahead.
I was going to move on to the actual unboxing experience. It depends what you sell. This isn't for everyone, but there are certain brands who definitely have got an opportunity to make that first purchase really, really special. Who's I come across recently? I bought a sample kit for some beard care products, or actually like just general men's hair and skin care, I think. So I got some moisturizers, I think a beard oil or something like that. And it was kind of okay. It came in a cardboard box, which was like clearly designed for those samples, but it didn't quite feel as premium as their brand was. So there's a really good opportunity there for them to put some extra content in there, really explain the benefits of each of these different samples, and then try and persuade me to buy the ones I like.
Right.
So in that sort of situation where that first purchase is kind of a leading purchase, really work hard to make that experience really good. Probably doesn't work so well for an e-commerce brand, like a fashion brand or something like that, where each product could just be its completely independent purchase. But you could still, depending on your fulfillment, obviously that's another issue. You could try and make that first delivery a bit special. Very true.
I mean, a lot of times it's like you said, that first experience is very critical, especially if you're a brand, whether it's a clothing brand or a brand where you have other products and you want customers to come back either purchase more of that same product or other products, then that every step of the way is very important. One thing I wanted to kind of go back on that you mentioned that I think is really key when you talked about the delivery partner. And what I see this all the time is I think a lot of times where they fall short, and this is something that, you know, any e-commerce company can be mindful of, is where the customer aggravation comes into play is when there's any lapse of communication. And, you know, every company falls victim to this, even Amazon, you know, which is the behemoth of the e-commerce world.
Yeah.
I've ordered plenty of products many times, and I've gotten those emails saying it's still on its way, but we're running late. And then, you know, you try to go in there to get the tracking details, and, you know, it's a little vague. It says, you know, it reached the shipping facility. It doesn't necessarily show that it's en route, but you're still kind of up in the air as to when you're going to receive it. You know, to alleviate, and that gives some frustration, I know, on my end, and I know people in my shoes do this, get the same thing. And this is not only with Amazon, this is with other providers. I think the key thing is communicating with them what exactly is going on, so they're not scrambling, worrying what's going on. And so, like you said, even if it hasn't physically left, maybe there is some type of delay, but you're clearly spelling out, okay, what's happened, where is it now, so that really you know, gives the customer a little bit of assurance, so they don't go running, try to do a cancellation of it, get a refund. And so I think the communication is a really big thing there. Yeah,
and I think there's a reason I'd suggest getting a courier who does that communication, because you can't always connect up to that courier to be able to show someone the data yourself. Right. But also you don't want to have to rely on an API or something working.
Yeah, so exactly.
Make sure that the courier communicates well, because at the end of the day, if the delivery is late or lost or whatever, it's your fault as the e-commerce brand. People seem to hate on the couriers and stuff, but at the end of the day, if the product is late, they come to you as the actual e-commerce brand. To ask where their order is.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Will, as we get ready to wrap things up, I'm always looking to kind of get some actionable advice that we can kind of pull from other existing businesses. And so, in your experience, what are some specific businesses that have really been successful with providing just a kind of an awesome customer experience that we can all look at and learn some things from? And, you know, what specifically have they done to have an optimal customer experience?
Yeah, so I guess this is probably one that's a bit less well known, I suppose, and it's Games Workshop. So I don't know if you know Games Workshop. They sell Warhammer, the models that you can build, paint, and play games with.
Okay.
Pretty big hobby. There are, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of £1 million worth business in the UK. Pretty big company here, all over the world though. Okay. And I'm involved in the hobby. I had about a 10-year gap, but I've come back into it. And what I always loved was the fact that you could go into a store and the staff were hobbyists themselves. So they wouldn't sell to you. You know, obviously they'd ask you what, you know, if you're looking for anything in particular, but they would happily talk to you about the certain army that you were collecting, or the different paints that you might want to use, or paintbrushes, or, you know, and they would happily say, well, maybe you don't want this, maybe this would be better for you. But they just really knew what they were talking about, because they kind of lived and breathed it. They weren't just there doing a job. Right. The majority of them are there actually because they like the hobby. They want to do it, so they want to work in it. So that was one really good aspect of it. You know, especially as a kid, when I first started, I was about 11 or 12. So going in there, not having a clue what I was doing, and just having someone who actually literally the first thing was, let's play a game. Let me show you the game so you can understand the game, how it works, the two different armies that we've got here. And then he chatted through all the different options, and I got to where I am, which is spending way too much money with them.
Gotcha.
But the other part of their customer experience, which I loved, and I don't know if they do much anymore, because there are various logistical reasons why they've changed, I think. So I'm not too sure if they do this anymore. But you basically used to be able to phone them up and say, I'm missing this part, or I've lost this part, or I've broken this part. And you could literally say to them, in the process of clipping someone's arm off the plastic sprue, I cut the arm in half. They would just send you a new one.
Okay. Wow.
And a lot of the time back then, they couldn't just send you that one arm. They had to send you the whole sprue.
Okay.
So it was quite open to abuse. You could just say to them, I've broken this one part in order to get like half a squad again, like, half the pieces you need. So, but they just, they would just say, cool, don't worry about it. We'll just send that to you. So we're really good with that. And I think when your business is so hobby and community related, because a big part of the hobby is playing the games. And so playing, across the table from someone, I think they did a really good job there of just keeping people happy, not making too big a fuss of it. And I think also they realized that, if someone had made a mistake, the options are they send you that one sprue, which might cost them £1 or something to produce.
Right.
But the alternative is they tell you you've got to spend £20 to £30 on the box that you originally bought just to get that one piece back.
Yeah.
So they're willing to kind of say, well, some people will abuse it. It costs us £1 to send that out. But instead of forcing this person to spend on the same box again, we could keep them happy and they'll buy a different box next time.
Exactly.
So I think they did a really good job there. Their community side is really, really good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great example. And the thing that I think the good takeaway from that is, even though, like you said, there's some people that are going to abuse that, a return where they're just going to eat the cost for that, even though, maybe it's including some other pieces there. People are going to, a lot of people or a few people are going to just, abuse it, but they're willing to kind of bite the bullet and, eat those costs because they know it's going to create a great customer experience that, will make that customer happy, other customers happy, and, naturally, the word will spread. And, it's really kind of essential to look at the big picture. A lot of times businesses are hesitant to spend any additional cost on a customer because, it costs so much to acquire the customer that, they're looking at their raw numbers. But sometimes I think you do got to kind of look beyond that, even though, it may cost you a little bit more, that may add to your cost to acquiring the customer and keeping the customer. In the long term, it really will, I think, benefit you as the business for sure.
Well, it comes down to customer lifetime value, really. They knew that when you take out the top end people who are spending probably tens of thousands with them, they're kind of like average lifetime value for a customer was probably £500. Maybe between 500 to 1,000 for someone who just kind of maybe played one army, collected one army, would buy, a decent collection there. So for a cost of £1 to send that one piece of plastic out, they're keeping someone happy who is going to spend, probably at least a couple of hundred more in their lifetime. So it's a no-brainer, really.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, that helping to improve that lifetime customer value, because if they're disgruntled and they're not happy that they got to buy a whole new kit, then they may lose interest, and so you got to be mindful of that, and then you're going to lose them as a lifetime customer.
Exactly.
Well, Will, it's been awesome talking to you. I've definitely learned a lot. As I said, the customer experience is something that I know a lot of businesses don't focus on a lot. They're focused on driving traffic, but if you don't improve it, you're going to definitely pay the price for it. And so I definitely think that you've helped us with some actionable items on that. But what I'd like to do before we let you go, as my final closing question, just to switch gears here, and so our audience can get to know you a little bit better, if you don't mind sharing one kind of closing fun fact that you think our audience would be interested to know about you.
I suppose it's not so much a fun fact as an interesting one. Okay. I have 3 metal plates in my cheek.
Oh, wow. Okay.
From I broke my cheek playing rugby.
Okay.
So yeah, I've got 2 around my eye and 1 in the cheek down here.
Okay, I would never have guessed. Never have guessed.
No, you can't tell. I keep forgetting, and then every now and again, an X-ray or something that pops up, and the doctor's like, "Is there anything you want to tell us?"
Right. Interesting. Yeah, definitely an interesting fact there. I know you have an experience going through the airport and metal detectors, I can imagine.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately not. It's not been for quite a while, but sure. A couple of years after it happened, in fact, it was actually going through American security. That tended to be where sometimes there'd be a little buzz. And
right. I can
be a little
imagine.
concerned about that.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. And lastly, of course, before we let you go, if any of our listeners want to get a hold of you and pick your brain any more about improving their customers' experience, what is the best way for them to get in contact with you?
The best is probably LinkedIn. So just Will Laurenson. You'll see I've got customers who click kind of all over my profile. Or Twitter, which is at Will Laurenson. Nice and easy. Trying to be more active, do more on Twitter. So go there as a preference, but if my preference, but LinkedIn would be the best place. It's probably where I'm most active.
Okay, that sounds great. Well, thank you for sharing that. We appreciate that, Will. And of course, thank you again for joining us today on the E-Commerce Marketing Podcast.
Thank you for having me. Absolute pleasure being here.
Sure.
Thank you for listening to the E-Commerce Marketing Podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode of the E-Commerce Marketing Podcast, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share it with everyone you know.